What is up, guys? This is Fantasy Football Bold Predictions 2019. Should be a fun video, and before I even get started, let me know in the comments if some of your bold predictions for this fantasy football season should be fun to discuss. And let's get into the video. Number 1, Drew Brees will not be a top 10 fantasy quarterback in 2019. Fantasy Football Calculator has the future Hall of Famer as an early 7th round pick and QB number 7 in terms of rankings. He finished as the QB number 8 last season in standard scoring, but we're expecting him to do better, which I find confusing. Brees is a guy in fantasy who's drafted highly based off his name, but when we look at his statistics and the fact that he's now 40, him having a fantastic season is not a sure thing. The Saints defense being good is the worst thing that could happen to Drew Brees in terms of his fantasy football outlook. Since Brees had his 5,208-yard passing season in 2016, the Saints have cut down his attempts in back-to-back years. In 2016, it was 673 passing attempts. In 2017, it was 536 passing attempts. And last year in 2018, it was 489 pass attempts, which was his lowest since 2004. I don't expect things to change either. The Saints are once again Super Bowl favorites for 2019. It's a small sample size, but from weeks 12 to 16 last season, Brees was the 22nd ranked quarterback. Something about Brees did not look right after the Week 13 Thursday night loss in Dallas. Maybe it was injury related that we don't know about, or it could have been age related. I'm not sure. He'll be fine for the real NFL in all likelihood, but for fantasy, I'd be looking elsewhere this season. Number 2, Devin Singletary becomes the Bills starter after their Week 6 bye. The Bills selected running back Devin Singletary in the 3rd round in this year's draft out of Florida Atlantic University. Singletary had over 1,000 yards in each of his 3 seasons at college, but had a monster 2017 with 1,918 yards and 32 touchdowns. Now, yes, he wasn't playing at the most prestigious college, but let's look at some of his stats versus ranked teams last year. Versus number 7 Wisconsin, he had 17 carries, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Versus number 4 Oklahoma, 18 carries, 69 yards, and a touchdown. And versus number 11 UCF, 25 carries, 131 yards, and 3 touchdowns. When you watch Singletary on tape, there's a lot to like. He's elusive, he'll fight for extra yards, capable pass catcher, has a nose for the end zone, has nice vision, and can usually find the hole. Even Frank Gore, who has been around the block a few times, praised Singletary, calling him the most natural running back he's seen since he's been drafted. Coach Doug McDermott offered some praise for him as well. In terms of his competition, there is obviously LeSean McCoy, who is now 31 years old and isn't exactly guaranteed to make the roster. The Bills can cut McCoy and save themselves $7 million, so it's very possible that he's cut. Frank Gore is 36 and will have a role on this team, but it's not a major role in all likelihood. And lastly, TJ Yeldon was already put in the doghouse after his preseason Week 1 fumble, so it's not guaranteed that he makes the roster either. Singletary is only 5'7", but 205 pounds, and he's handled 21 carries per game over the last 2 seasons in college. He's an 11th round pick right now, so as long as you have patience and roster space, I'd try to stash Devin Singletary. Number 3, DeShaun Watson finishes as the number 1 fantasy quarterback in 2019. You may think this one is outrageous, but honestly, it doesn't seem that far-fetched to me. Watson finished last season as the number 4 quarterback and did that with a collapsed lung and a broken rib. He also had 2 out of his 3 starting wide receivers go down after Will Fuller tore his ACL in Week 8 and Keke Coutee missed 10 games with recurring hamstring issues. Not to mention that in 2018, Watson was coming off a torn ACL that he had less than a year ago. Watson also took the most sacks in the NFL last season, but the Texans did address the offensive line in the draft, which does help. Heading into 2019, Watson is a full year removed from his ACL injury, and his top 3 wide receivers are coming in healthy. Well, Keke Coutee does have a minor ankle injury right now, but he should be fine for the regular season. Just about everything that could go wrong for Watson in 2018 did, between losing 2 of his top 3 receivers and injuries of his own, but still managed to be the quarterback number 4. Another thing to love about Watson in 2019 is his schedule. The Texans play the AFC West and the NFC South, which have some of the top offenses in football and offer many shootout opportunities in games for the Texans. He also plays at the Bucs in Week 16, which couldn't be a more perfect matchup for Fantasy Championship Week. The Texans recently traded for Duke Johnson, who offers a nice pass-catching option out of the backfield, and in the right role could add 60 receptions and about 500 plus yards. We all love a fantasy quarterback that offers the rushing upside, and Watson has a history of doing so, and even last season had 551 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. He even did all that with a broken rib and collapsed lung, so I'm sure running was not easy for him. We could be in store for better rushing numbers as long as Watson's healthy in 2019. Number 4, Josh Jacobs of the Raiders finishes as an RB1 aka top 12 running back in 2019. It's always hard to predict the workload for a rookie running back, but Josh Jacobs is in such a good spot this season. His competition for touches is washed up Doug Martin and Jalen Richard, who is only used for passing downs. The Raiders' offensive line also has the potential to be pretty good. They added left guard Richie Incognito, who is definitely older, but when he played the last few years, he's been an efficient guard. Right tackle Trent Brown was brought over from the Patriots, and 2018's first-round left tackle Colton Miller should show improvements in year 2. The Raiders spent a first-round pick, number 24 overall, on Jacobs last April, and they're going to use him a ton if I had to guess. Jacobs is no doubt going to be the between-the-20s back for the Raiders, but here's my argument to make him the goal line back. Last season, Doug Martin was given 17 carries inside the 10-yard line and scored on just 3 of them. So why would you stick to that low efficiency if you're John Gruden? At Alabama last season, Jacobs scored 9 times on 22 attempts inside the 10, which is super efficient, especially compared to Doug Martin. In terms of receptions, having Richard there will be annoying, but for the amount of snaps Jacobs will play, I believe him getting around 50 catches is a safe estimate. We've seen John Gruden give rookie running backs plenty of work before when he gave Cadillac Williams 290 rushing attempts in 2005, so Jacobs getting a workhorse type role shouldn't shock anybody. If I had to make a projection, I would say he sees a minimum of 220 carries if he plays all 16 games and should see around 60 to 80 targets. Jacobs has a 5'10", 220-pound frame, so there shouldn't be any concerns about him handling a large workload. To make it better, he wasn't used much at Alabama playing next to now Patriots running back Damien Harris, so Jacobs should still be very fresh. A lot of Jacobs' success will ride on how successful the Raiders' offense is in 2019. Adding Antonio Brown and Tyrell Williams helps a ton, but Derek Carr needs to play more like the 2016 version rather than what we've seen the last 2 years. Recently, we've heard of Antonio Brown threatening to retire over a helmet, so if he does, that'll definitely hurt Jacobs, but as of right now, I'm excited for the amount of work Jacobs should see in 2019. Number 5, Damien Williams is a bust in 2019. What if I told you a 27-year-old running back who has never had more than 13 carries in a game is going second round in fantasy drafts, and that same guy has never had more than 50 carries in a single season? Honestly, when was the last time we saw a running back break out at the age of 27? The last person I could think of was Michael Turner, but that's because he was stuck behind a future Hall of Famer in LaDainian Tomlinson his first 4 seasons in the NFL. Now, although I just made the Michael Turner comparison, the situation with Damien Williams was nowhere near the same. Turner was always an efficient running back, but unfortunately was stuck behind the future Hall of Fame running back in his prime. The best player Damien Williams backed up in his career was either Kenyon Drake or Jay Ajayi. The truth is, Damien Williams had 5 seasons to wow a coach, and whether it was Andy Reid, Adam Gase, Dan Campbell, or Joe Philbin, he never did. The only reason Damien Williams finally got the featured back role was because Kareem Hunt got suspended and Spencer Ware injured his hamstring at the end of 2018. No one wants to mention that when Hunt first got suspended, it was Spencer Ware that was the featured back. It took that much to happen for Damien Williams to have the backfield to himself. So now, just because the Chiefs didn't want to spend money on another back, I'm supposed to believe that Damien Williams all of a sudden becomes this amazing running back at age 27? And it's not like the Chiefs didn't do anything at running back either. They signed Damien Williams' clone named Carlos Hyde. Yes, Damien Williams is a little better pass catcher, but outside of that, they're basically the same. They also selected rookie Darwin Thompson in the 6th round of this year's draft. So you better believe I'm going to draft Carlos Hyde in the 9th round instead of a 2nd round pick on a lifelong backup running back. Another thing to mention is that Damien Williams is coming off a training camp hamstring injury, which sometimes lingers into the regular season. Andy Reid even praised Carlos Hyde for taking advantage of the reps while Williams was out. Lastly, Andy Reid said he wants to implement a running back by committee in 2019, which no fantasy owner wants to hear. If Williams has a great year and I miss out on it, then so be it. But for me, there are too many red flags to spend a 2nd round pick on him. Number 6, Nick Chubb has 14 plus touchdowns in 2019. Since the trade of Duke Johnson, I've become a lot more fond of Nick Chubb than I previously was. The only competition for touches for the first 10 weeks is undrafted free agent Dontrell Hilliard. Even when Kareem Hunt comes back, he's not going to be the goal line back. That job is Nick Chubb's all season long as he's out there. Chubb averaged 5.2 yards per carry with 10 touchdowns in his rookie season. I'll say that again. He had 10 touchdowns last season. He wasn't even given the starting job until the Browns' 7th game of the season, but he found a way to score 10 times. Now he's on a better team and will be given all the carries he can handle. I think the sky is the limit for Chubb in 2019. PFF had Chubb as their second best elusive rating running back since 2009, only trailing Alvin Kamara's rookie season in 2017. Chubb's a terrific athlete as well. He ran a 4.540, 29 bench reps, 90th percentile speed score, and 91st percentile burst score. The knock on Chubb is that he doesn't catch the ball, but that wasn't part of the Browns' game plan in 2018. He did catch 20 of his 29 targets, and he's not a fantastic receiver, but he's good enough to catch swing passes and screen passes. So in conclusion, just think of all the goal line opportunities he's going to have. All it takes is Odell Beckham, David Njoku, and Jarvis Landry to get interfered with in the end zone, and the Browns get the ball on the 1-yard line for Nick Chubb to punch it in. 14 touchdowns is a lot, but I believe in this offense, the goal line opportunities he's going to get, and I believe in the talent of Nick Chubb. Number 7, Zach Ertz is not a top 3 tight end in 2019. In 2019, Zach Ertz had by far his best season in the NFL. He had a career-high 156 targets as compared to his previous 112 target career high in 2015. Ertz received 25% of the Eagles' target share in 2018, but in previous years it was never even close to that high. He only had 16% of the Eagles' target share in 2017 and only 18% in 2016. You can argue that 2018 was an outlier year and everything just broke perfectly for Zach Ertz. I still think Ertz will be a top 10 tight end this year, but to think he'll be top 3 again seems like wishful thinking. Most fantasy rankings have Ertz in the top 3 amongst their tight ends, but I'm not a fan of buying him while his stock is at the highest. The chance that he's going to replicate 150 targets again after the Eagles added DeShaun Jackson, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and Miles Sanders seems unlikely to me. Even their other tight end, Dallas Goedert, should play more as well, which can cut into the targets for Zach Ertz. There are many guys behind Ertz in better situations and offer more of an upside to finish top 3. It could be either Hunter Henry, Evan Engram, O.J. Howard, Vance McDonald, or even David Njoku for all we know. I like Ertz as a player, but I just don't see him replicating that fantastic 2018 season he had. So that'll do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as I said before, leave your comments for your bold predictions, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.